Hello everyone, my name is Manolis Finorilakis, the founder and CEO of Reality Crowd TV, and welcome to a very special presentation brought to you by VICN, the Virtual Incubator and Crowdfunding Network. We are implementing what is known as an office hours program, and you as the audience today are lucky because this is the first one that we're doing associated with VICN, the Virtual Incubator. So before I introduce the great guests that we have, a couple of great entrepreneurs we have as well as a great mentor, I'd like to just share with the audience a little bit about what VICN is all about. The concept of VICN came about because 90% of entrepreneurs who come to us seeking help in crowdfunding or in startup activities, unfortunately, they either need additional assistance in identifying their idea, or they might not have the resources to enlist a consultant hands-on full-time. So the Virtual Incubator is a free resource for anyone, regardless of income, to actually engage in a free environment and in a safe environment to learn more about crowdfunding and entrepreneurship. And so the Office Hours program is one of the many benefits of the actual ecosystem because we're able to actually meet members of our community and, you know, in a very casual manner like we're doing tonight, help them and answer questions and work together to find innovative solutions to their problems. So I wanted to give that little introduction because it's free to join. So if anyone is watching, feel free to join the incubator at any time. We'd love to have more people join us for the next few episodes. So without further ado, I'd love to introduce our first guest, and I'm going to name them by name and title, and then I'll let them give a brief introduction. So we have Alan Casey, who is the founder and CEO of Cayenne, and excuse me if I pronounced that incorrectly, you can correct me. But Alan, pleasure to have you here, and please introduce yourself and your company.
Okay, thank you, Manolis. So I'm Alan, and with my wife, I'm the co-founder of Cayenne. We have a prototype of a smart handbag. It has a power source installed in it. It will light up the inside of your handbag, and it will power your smartphone. We are a social impact business. We're social entrepreneurs, and we are using the funds generated by the sales of the handbag. A part of the profits will go to funding social causes in each of the communities that we trade with. How about that for a synopsis?
That was great. Thank you very much, Alan. It's a pleasure to have you here. And you're joining us from New Zealand, so welcome from New Zealand. Always great to have our show go global. So thank you for joining us.
Pleasure.
Great. And so our second guest is also from that neck of the woods. He's from Australia, Jeremiah Moore, the CEO of Picoodle. And Jeremiah, thank you for joining us, and please introduce yourself to the audience.
Thank you. I'm the CEO of Picoodle. It's a mobile phone app and tablet. Basically, you take a photo and it links you to what that image is. So may it be a handbag or a shoe or a car or a flower or a person. It'll give you information, and I wish to develop that to incorporate online shopping. So you see that shoe or that handbag, and it'll link you straight to the site where you can purchase it and receive it.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Jeremiah, for joining us. And as you can see, ladies and gentlemen, we have two great entrepreneurs with innovative ideas. We're going to dig into the details shortly with their projects. But we also have an amazing special guest here as a guest mentor for the incubator. We have Stephanie Sims, the founder of Financeability. And Stephanie, please introduce yourself, and thank you for joining us.
Well, of course, I'm thrilled to be here, Manolis. You know, I love to hang out with you and some of the cool entrepreneurs that are over on VICN. As Manolis said, I'm the founder of Financeability, and our goal is really to teach businesses that they have the ability to get funded, but what they need to do is they need to know, show, and grow their worth. So I teach people how to do that.
Excellent, Stephanie. Thank you so much. And you have a great story as well, from a corporate employee to entrepreneur in your own right. So again, thank you very much for joining us. So we at the beginning of our actual segment, when we actually brought Alan and Jeremiah on, we asked them to give us specific questions. We're going to get into those questions shortly, but I think we probably should kind of learn a little bit more about their businesses before we actually go ahead and do that. So you mentioned, Alan, you mentioned that you have a social mission, and you mentioned that you're creating a handbag. I'd like you to go into more detail, and in fact, I'm also going to share my screen and actually share your website as you explain more information about it. So just tell us a little bit more about your company in a more detailed fashion, exactly how you came up with the idea, and where you are in the process of prototyping and things of that nature.
Okay, so about 5 years back, I found myself working as an organizational effectiveness consultant in Singapore. And I was doing a piece of work in one of the global advertising networks to understand why the Singapore office was in the bottom 5 out of about 120 offices around the world. The root cause analysis that I did found that the ultimate root cause was that the organization was listed on the Wall Street stock market, and that led to it making some unsound decisions based on unrealistic earnings forecasts, combined with very, very large bonuses paid to their senior leadership. And I started to question why this was occurring, and how you could make a much more conscious business. That led me through to Conscious Capitalism, an amazing book written by the founder of Whole Foods, John Mackey, and Raj Sisodia from Harvard. And we had a concept of a smart handbag, which was itself based on my wife Kate's frustration with not being able to find small objects in the bottom of her handbag, especially in dark places. So she kept exclaiming for many years, "Why can't I have a light in my handbag?" When the piece of work in Singapore finished, we decided to head up to Vietnam to follow this concept and project of putting technology into a handbag. Vietnam was a great place to do this. We were able to find the artisan craftsmen to work with leather. We have a fantastic manufacturing partner in Saigon. We were also close to Shenzhen, which is the electronics capital of the world, that allowed us to get to the source manufacturers of the LED light strips that go into the bag, the power banks, and all of the electronic components. The social impact side really was born out of the question of the equality of all of the stakeholders in the business. Now, I did an MBA 20-something years ago, in which we were taught that the responsibility of a director of a business is to maximize shareholder wealth. And you can see how this has really skewed a lot of the markets and a lot of businesses, no matter what their sector. I've seen the implications, the impact of putting their shareholder above and beyond the interests of the workers, of the partners, and even of the customers. And we were determined, if we were going into a startup, that we were not going to go down that path. So we built a business model that placed the workers of our partner manufacturers, ourselves as shareholders, the customers, and the community on an equitable footing. No one was more important than any other in the business, because otherwise the business would be unbalanced. The real question for us, and the biggest struggle, was how we were honest and true to our desire to treat the community the communities in which our customers live and work as true stakeholders within the social impact business. That has really taken some time, but we were very fortunate to find an enlightened and thought leader in an NGO in Vietnam that support families with children that are suffering the impact of Agent Orange from the Vietnam War. And between Nick and I, over the past year, we came to understand how we could better help these types of NGOs. I spent 10 years myself as a volunteer chairman in an NGO here in New Zealand that focused on supporting the families of gifted children, which itself is a very interesting topic when you consider underprivileged communities, very low socioeconomic families that don't get the recognition and the help that they need. You can find some very serious societal impacts related to giftedness. That, at its core, is my driver. And as a social entrepreneur, the handbag has given me the ability to address that social cause.
Wonderful, and so that's an amazing story. In fact, I mean, even out in New Zealand, you decided to actually go to Vietnam to kind of begin the sourcing journey after you and your wife identified that need from your own personal pet peeves, so to speak. And because of that social mission, it's not only a company that has the potential to make a decent amount of revenue, it also is doing good in the world.
Correct. I mean, the whole of the model is, look, my son is now 24. He's just got into an amazing organisation in Sydney, Australia. When he was 4 years old, it was very much a sliding doors moment whether he was going to have a successful life or a pretty yuck life. Now, lucky to have parents from the upper socio-economic range of life. And from that period, so for the past 20 years, I've been trying to work out how I make a big impact on the lives of a lot of people that can be pretty tragic. And how you do that is really core to the whole of this business. When we emerged, once we had launched the website earlier this year, and we launched ourselves into exposure to the wider world, I found a definition of social entrepreneur on Wikipedia, and I was aghast at how accurately it described what we had conceived of, in that the primary function of the business, as Kate and I perceive it, is not to sell handbags. It is to generate the funds to create a very beneficial social impact.
Wonderful. That's great. And so before I actually go into Jeremiah, was there anything you wanted to briefly say, Stephanie?
Well, I just wanted to address, maybe, do we want to address Alan's question right now, or do we want to kind of save that until we hear Jeremiah's story? It's up to you.
You know what? It might make sense to actually address the questions right now. You raise a good point, just because we want to keep it fresh. So, Jeremiah, do you want to, or sorry, Alan, you had a couple of questions that you asked specifically for your project, and they were in two forms. So you're interested in looking at crowdfunding, and you know that there's many different forms, and you're wondering what form of crowdfunding is the most appropriate to fund your needs, and you have two specific needs. One is to actually fund the mass production and procurement of the materials for the handbag, and then the second one, which might be a sustainability question, is raising enough funding to actually build a support team around your organization. Did I categorize those two questions correctly?
Yeah, that was very well put, Manolis. Yes.
Okay, perfect. So,
Yep.
yeah. So Stephanie, I'd love for you to kind of take a crack at that with your company Financeability. You know, your company is all about the funding, among other things, but funding is a big part of your business. So perhaps you can take a crack at that question.
Sure. Well, I'll do my best. Obviously, you're the expert on crowdfunding. But one of the things which we talked a little bit about, Alan, is you know that you want to grow this business, right? You know that this round of funding is just a start, like you said, for the first production run. And so I think one of the things you want to consider, since you're building a social enterprise, is whether or not the future sources of funding are going to be people that you want to take money from. Because you might want to rethink the way that you raise your money now and think about perhaps making it more of a sustaining membership as opposed to just using this as your initial crowdfunding getting off the ground. I just say that because when I look at the venture capital landscape, and there will be angel investors probably who would be interested in helping you, but I'm not sure that you would get enough critical mass to be able to do what you want to do with the company just from angels. And those guys are going to want you, obviously, to maximize shareholder value. Not necessarily. Absolutely. So have you thought about that? I mean, have you given some thought to who you want to approach?
Yes,
or
I was giving thought to this a year ago when we hadn't really. I hadn't been through the entire thought process of what the business was and how it looked and how it supported community. I didn't have those answers. I only had questions, and we have a quite brilliant strategic advisor that has been working with us, and Jake advised us last year to find a partner and to get some funding. But my fear at that point was that I didn't want the shareholder to be elevated to be above the other stakeholders. And would I be able to find a funding partner that would respect that? And how could I answer that question when I myself was not able to articulate what it was that I wanted to achieve? And so I have had to put answering those questions off until now, when I have something which I can describe in detail the entire business and supply chain. So that is really one of my fundamental questions. How do I go about finding the right partner who has the right beliefs and the aligned value sets that we need to be able to scale this up in a conscious perspective?
Okay, and I think that's a really good question, because honestly, the market right now for most venture capital is that their clients are expecting an even higher return, right? So what you're looking for is those guys are not in a place where, hey, we've made plenty of money and we can take something that offers a lower return. They're really getting pressure to generate even higher returns from their clients. So they're pricing themselves out of your market, if you will. Yep. Have you thought? Yeah, it's a hard one. When I think about it, I think maybe you ought to approach your crowdfunding as an equity type crowdfunding, so that what you're really doing is you're creating partners and you open the door to future investments on their part when you're ready to scale up, because you know they support your mission.
So I had seen equity crowdfunding. I have 3 very large documents that I've received late this week that I have to plow through and understand, and they really are a global commentary on crowdfunding. And my interest, but I have very little knowledge at the moment, is on the question of equity crowdfunding, which steers us away from Kickstarter but into the realms of the likes of Indiegogo, where we can participate. But this is where my questions really begin in earnest. Is I know very little about those platforms.
Well, the good news is Manolis is your guy.
No, and actually that's actually a perfect segue too, because someone had actually just mentioned on the questions. Vincent Petrescu says, "How about equity crowdfunding from non-accredited investors?" So, with the equity crowdfunding, Alan, I'm not sure what the laws are in New Zealand. I believe there are New Zealand equity crowdfunding platforms. I know in Australia there's the ASOB platform, ASSOB, which is one of the first ever equity crowdfunding platforms. Have you actually looked into what the rules are, or is that large package that you still need to look into?
Now, there's another piece of information that we need to discuss, and that's our intent to incorporate this company in Hong Kong. Now, there are two reasons for that. Our supply chain will be heavily coming through Hong Kong. Our scalability to get up to very large volumes will likely require us to move the handbag manufacturing from Saigon up to either Hong Kong or Shenzhen with our partner. And that will see the entire supply chain moving through Hong Kong. It makes sense to incorporate up there. I really am agnostic in terms of our country of residence at the moment. We're only in New Zealand because our son has recently had identical twin grandsons, and we are very, very active grandparents at the moment. The other aspect and the attractiveness of Hong Kong is a zero corporate tax rate, which will allow us to maximize, by having an online business model, by minimizing my supply chain costs and by minimizing my corporate tax overhead, I can maximize the returns to the community whilst taking a reasonable and fair return for ourselves as shareholders. Now, minimizing corporate tax does not mean tax avoidance, because we will be paying sales tax in each tax regime that we sell the handbags into, and we want to be funding at a community level, which will be putting money into either the NGOs or consultants to work with those NGOs on their effectiveness. So there is still a tax stream that comes through from this. So Hong Kong, for me, is the point of incorporation, and my questions around equity crowdfunding need to be in context of Hong Kong.
Yes, and I will say this. I know that Hong Kong and China as a whole are working towards that, but that's definitely not my expertise. The expertise that Stephanie and I have are in the U.S.
Yeah.
But to be honest with you, I actually think you can do a rewards-based campaign on this, because you have two key ingredients for crowdfunding success with your project. Number one, it's a consumer product, and that consumer product happens to be a handbag. And Stephanie, how many handbags do you own personally?
I'm not a good judge for this one. I only have 3.
Hey, can I sell you a 4th?
Well,
oh,
go ahead.
No, you go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to say I'm not a good measure, but it's definitely a very attractive market in terms of, they wear out, people need new ones, fashion changes. So yeah, I completely agree with you that a crowdfunding platform of some sort crowdfunding campaign, of some sort would be interesting. I just want to make sure that we end up with something that's going to help you sustain the company. That's my concern.
Yes. Yep.
And very good point too, Stephanie. There, and I'll let you jump in 1 second too. The second piece of this is also the fact that you're a socially conscious company. So not only do you have a consumer product that people own multiple pairs of, but you also have that social mission attached, which is two key ingredients, I think, to have a good story for this. And what I've seen with a couple other projects, one of them was this coffee sleeve that actually had a socially conscious mission attached. Once they succeeded in the actual crowdfunding on the rewards-based side, they were able to attract the right type of investors after the fact. So it's kind of like your little bridge to get to additional funding. It probably won't get you all the funding you need to actually hire a team, but it'll get you through that first hurdle of production, and then after the fact, because you prove the demand, it should be able to make your life easier when you look for other investors.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you.
The one thing I did, the one thing I did find, Manolis, is that there is a platform called investable.vc that apparently specializes in Hong Kong-based startups. It looks like it might be focused more on tech, so I'm not sure it would be an exact fit for you, but that might be worth investigating so that you could at least get a feel for how many investors they have, how quickly they're able to move, what the campaigns they're running now look like. That might be a good place to start. And the only other thing I would think about is if it's a possibility, there might be some ways to structure your fundraising arm so that it was situated in a place that might make it easier for you to do equity crowdfunding, and then that might be a wholly owned subsidiary or something like that of your Hong Kong-based company.
Understand the concept, don't have the experience to be able to do that, so this is where I need the other part of the performance team, which is someone with good financial solid, a CFO type of person that's going to be able to advise and be a part of that journey.
Right. There's also, an option that might be interesting would be to have that person commit instead of having 100% salary, to have them commit to being a partner as well.
Preferable. That's much more preferable.
Right, which reduces the amount of cash you're looking for. We can keep talking. I'm sorry, we've had Jeremiah waiting. This is just fascinating because I'm like, oh, there's all these different things.
No, this has been great, and yeah, I agree. We'll have more time to chat, Alan, as well. But yes, Jeremiah, you've been so patient waiting. Can you kind of give us a little bit more detail about Picoodle? Similar to Alan, tell us how you actually came up with the idea. What your traction has been so far to date regarding downloads. Maybe some traction as to the press that you've received, and same thing. I'll actually just quickly go to your website and share my screen as you tell us a little bit about your business.
Thank you, and Al, I love yours idea. My wife's definitely in your target group with her 20 handbags in the cupboard. Yeah, very good. Not 3, unfortunately. So I've got an app called Picoodle, which is currently free on the store, Google Store, iTunes Store. It's currently based advertising revenue at this point. So basically, it works on image recognition. Hello, sorry, my family's just come home. Hello, sweetie.
Nice timing.
Yeah, timing. Yes, hello. Daisy, by the way. And basically, you take a photo of something, it tells you what it is. It came out of, I'm a bit of a gardener, sort of inherited from my father, who was a bit of a conservationist and gardener. A few awards under his belt. And he passed that on to me. Bit involuntarily at the start when I was a teenager, having to water the garden before going out playing with my mates. But I thank him for that. So, but unfortunately, he's not around anymore. And yeah, I had a daisy bush, and it had bugs all over it. And can you go and see Mummy, sweet? And I didn't know what this bug was. Where's a botanist when you need one? So I went to Google, searched for bugs. There's quite a few bugs out there, a couple of million. So I went, wouldn't it be great if there was an app for that where you could take a photo of something, it'd tell you what it is, and you go from there. So that's how it came about. Even though I've done about 8 to a dozen programming languages myself, they're a bit old school, as in Cobalt, Fortran, Pascal, C, when it only had 1+. I believe it's got a Sharp now. So I paid someone to develop the app through Odesk, and developed the app. It's out now. It's free. Pick Google. It's like Google for pictures or Shazam for music, where you take a photo of something and it tells you what it is. So that's working now. I have, I think, about 1,600 downloads on iPhone. It was out in October. I think late November the Android app was finished. But I want to sort of expand it to online shopping, where I do a bit of online shopping. I see the nice branded shoes in the shoe store, and I can buy the same shoes for half the price online. But quite often I know what I want, but to find what I want online is quite difficult. And so I thought, well, you know, if I like this cup, I can take a photo of that cup, and then may not show me that cup because you're not going to find that online, but something similar. So, and so I'd like to eventually drop the revenue stream of advertising, have no ads, even drop the upgrade capability, and just have it completely free. You can use it to find out what something is, or you can use it to buy something. And take a small portion, maybe 1% of the sale, to whoever the online merchant is, if that's a Amazon or a Dan Murphy's for wine, or whatever you're taking a photo of. So yeah, and the website was just shown to give you a sort of indication of what it does now.
Very interesting, and I mean the concept is dynamite. I mean, the ability to take a picture of something and for it to search all over the internet and show you either the same object or a similar object, so that you could purchase it. I mean, that's just an amazing concept. You actually did get some very recognition. Weren't you? I mean, tell us about the press and the TV show that you were on in Australia.
Yeah, well, I believe in North America you have Shark Tank. We've had a season in Australia, the first season, the Australian version of Shark Tank, and there was a competition associated with it called Your Shark Tank. So there was about 1,600 entries, and there was 5 finalists, one being me. So I went to Channel 10 here. We did a day of filming. For 4 minutes of footage, and so I got featured on the TV show, and supported by Optus. I'm very grateful for the opportunity for them to listen to me, and to get some feedback from some entrepreneurs, investors, and such on what direction I should, you know, channel it in, because my initial direction was completely different. So, and I've got some very good advice, which you just can't pay for.
Excellent. That's great. You did have a few questions. You had the following few questions. You wanted some feedback on the Picoodle app in general, potentially how it can be improved. And you also wanted some crowdfunding advice specifically for mobile applications. So I'll let Stephanie start first. Stephanie, what do you think of the concept of the ability to take a photo similar to the Shazam for pictures? Give us your thoughts on what you heard.
Okay. Well, we talked about this before, Jeremiah, but I really like this idea, and I think it's got a lot of potential. As you were talking, as a mom, I was like, oh, you know what else he could do? He could use it, for example, if a child has a rash, or if they have some kind of skin condition that they don't understand what it is. That could also be a whole other avenue. It's medical, but I don't want to distract you. But as a mom, I was thinking, oh my gosh, that would be so great. So I see lots of applications for it, and I agree with you that this direct path to revenue where you're not charging the people to use it, but the people who eventually make the profit on the sale is probably the quickest way to get yourself a profitable business. We had talked about when we were looking at creating the crowdfunding platform for you, I mean not for you but with you, how much money you were looking for and what you were going to use it for. So could you just maybe tell us, because that makes a difference. We didn't say that at the top of the show, Manolis, but how much money you're looking for and what you're going to use it for can also decide for you where's the best place to look for it.
Absolutely, that's a great point. And Jeremiah, tell us a little bit about how much you are looking for, and what would you be using those funds for?
Initially, to start receiving revenue, which it's receiving small amounts of revenue. As downloads go up, advertising revenue goes up by default. But about $25,000, about $10,000 dedicated to my own custom API, which I own outright, which may be a sellable thing within itself to other businesses that may want to use image recognition for rashes or whatever purpose that they want to use it for. And the second part would be $10,000 to $15,000 to actually develop the app to be more professional. It works, but also to make that link with, you only need a link with one initial large company, may it be your Amazons or eBays or your of the world, to start receiving revenue where I don't need to look for investment anymore. I must say, when you think of image recognition, when you can take a photo and know what it is, and like I mentioned before, online shopping wasn't my initial path, but for revenue, which allows it to take other paths, I thought was the best one to start on. So yeah, image recognition, like we had a chat before, Steph, could lead on to so many things. You've got disabled people, you've got vision impaired people, are they standing in front of the coffee shop they want to go to? Is the lights green to cross the road? It's just got so much potential. But yeah, the path to revenue, I think, is online shopping to start with.
Well, and it's, oh, go ahead, Manolis, sorry.
Sorry, yeah, I want to ask one question too, because image recognition obviously is a pretty high-tech technology. I mean, at least from my perspective, I have no clue how that's done. So the ability to have it done is just blowing my mind. But let me ask you this: like, do you have some sort of algorithm that is proprietary to yourself? Is this some sort of patented algorithm? I'm just asking because maybe there's other image recognition people out there as well. So do you have a patent on what your product is on Picoodle?
I'm using an already patented API from another company, not Google, and that's working. I did experimenting. There's probably only two, one being Google and one that I'm using. And I found the one I'm using actually gives me more accurate results. But that's the first $10,000 just to start developing that. If I can do that, my programmer indicates that it could be done for that sort of figure. It's basically going through images on the web and putting points, like a 3D model, if you put a graph paper over it and comparing those points to other points of other pictures, and processing that as quick as possible. So it sounds complicated, but it's actually not.
So just as a follow-on, sorry, Manolis. Just as a follow-on, it would probably be a good idea to include, say, another $5,000 in your budget of the money you're trying to raise to actually get to work on a patent, because if you're going to build the API, you need to protect it. And so I would add some money into your budget for that. And again, I'm not an expert on law in Australia, but you would want to talk to a patent attorney to find out what it would cost you to get that protected.
Yeah, and obviously so that would have to be international patent rather than.
Right. But yeah, for sure, you'd want it to be an international. That's true.
Just like trademark. Yeah.
Right. And the idea, though, was, as you were saying that, I was trying to see what would be attractive for somebody who would participate in like a donation-based crowdfunding campaign. You know, say that you did a Kickstarter campaign. What would you offer those people?
And that's the thing. I didn't think probably Kickstarter was the best way to approach it. I don't have a physical product to give you. I can give you an app, but it's free anyway. And I looked at Indiegogo. That looked like people with ideas, supporting other ideas or causes, might be a better way to fund it, because yes, it is difficult to crowdfund since I don't have a product to give you. If you give me $10, I say thank you.
Okay, well, I was just thinking, is there any way? Do you need more images to make your product better?
There's definitely enough images on the internet.
Okay, so something where, for example, you showcased their pictures, or they got to upload.
They actually need less pictures.
Oh, okay. Okay, so never mind, that won't help.
Yeah, like for example, if you linked it directly to, just as an example, Amazon, you would want to link it to all their database pictures. You don't want to link it to anyone else. So if you link to Amazon, you're looking at their pictures, or eBay, or a wine cellar. You want to look at their images because you're linking to them. So eventually down the track, you would maybe offer customized versions for whatever online retailer. And that's where owning your own API, having it patented, becomes a valuable item within itself.
Right.
And you know, that's very very good points, both Stephanie and Jeremiah. I do think it would be a very tough road to go the rewards-based route. I mean, you can come up with some like really like innovative ways, I guess. Like you'd have to figure out a way to offer something of high value, even though the app itself is free. But I do know a particular organization on the equity crowdfunding side. If you write down the website appvested.com, appvested.com, they're actually an equity crowdfunding platform, and not only do they actually help you raise the funding, but they also have a huge developer core, mobile app developers. So if you needed any additional help, they also like to facilitate the financing to approved developers as well. So it could be a win-win on that side. I've interviewed them before, and they specialize specifically in crowdfunding for mobile applications.
I have seen. Sorry to interrupt. I've gone to a few. I don't know if you have meetups in North America. That's
yes.
a thing. Where, yeah. You know what I'm talking about. I've been to entrepreneur meetups. Some funded by app makers. One called Appster here in Australia. Another one, Odesk or Elance. So I've been to a few of those, and the winner of the day gets $4,000 towards their app idea, etc. So yeah, I was considering those, so that might be a good stream to go for, since they're already in the field of what I want to do.
The other place I was going to suggest you have a look is angellist.co. Actually, it's angel.co it's called AngelList, but angel.co is the URL. And they do, I'll have to look, I think there may be some UK investors on there now, and I know mostly they're North American investors. But basically what that is that's a group of angel investors and or angel syndicates who might be a good fit for you as well, instead of going the crowdfunding route. Just because what you would have is you would have a commitment for all the money you needed, as opposed to kind of taking the risk that your campaign doesn't give you all the funding you needed.
Mm-hmm.
And I think with your mass market, with your idea about linking to an online retailer, that would definitely be seen as a highly attractive opportunity for them.
Mm.
And one other thing too is, so you do have 60 apps. So before we necessarily completely write off the rewards campaign, of the 1,600 people, are there users who love using your app? Like the people who downloaded who are using it, are they like active and engaged and constantly using it? Because depending on how engaged your tribe of people are within that 1,600 of users, maybe they would want to help fund the next evolution of Picoodle. So, I mean, maybe you might want to take a stock and an inventory and a survey if you have all their contact information because they downloaded it, or you could send push notifications. Maybe there could be a way to build enough momentum with your existing crowd of users.
That's an excellent idea. I actually receive statistics. I'm one of those weird people that like graphs, I have over 10,000 likes on the Picoodle Facebook page. I'm building up nearly 2,000 followers on Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, etc. So I'm getting interest. I'm getting probably about a third of my users using it every month. So I know they're not just downloading it and going, "Oh, that's cool." And I've had friends. I've got a local friend who lives in Kansas, and he said, "Oh, my boss is starting to use it. They were using something else, and they've found your results are better." I go, "Well, tell her to spread the word, all right?" So I've even had people commenting. I work at an educational institution in IT, and people higher up in the chain, the executive level, have gone, "I actually used your app the other day to find out what this was," or a musician said, I needed to know how to set up this amp. I didn't know, I knew the brand, that's it. I took a photo, it took me to the menu, we went from there. So I am getting a good feedback from users. It'd be good if feedback turned into dollars, but not at this point. But yeah, I'm getting positive feedback from people saying this is useful.
And I mean, that in itself is, I mean, so you essentially have validated the utility of it. I mean, one thing that I love to see is some people use crowdfunding as the validation for their concepts. I mean, and definitely it can be used that way. But if you haven't done any kind of customer validation before you do a crowdfunding campaign, I mean, you're going down a road where potentially you could just waste a lot of money and time, because there's ways that you can obviously validate an idea and the utility of it before you ever launch. And so you've already done that. But I think both of you have already kind of validated the ideas. And so with that in mind, this is more of a blanket statement. Is there projects that do better than others on crowdfunding platforms if they're a consumer good versus a mobile app? Absolutely. The overwhelming odds are uh, that a consumer product will do better than an application. But I don't want to be the guy to tell you that no, that's not going to work for crowdfunding, because frankly we just met each other tonight, and I don't know how many people you know and how many people support you, because crowdfunding, especially on the rewards-based side, is ultimately who is able to corral the most people and support for their ideas, who can actually bring all their different connections together over the years, organize a campaign, and actually launch an orchestrated fundraiser. And if you have the community and the friendships and the team around you, and this goes to both of you, then you technically can raise the money you need, because ultimately it is running a campaign. So I wanted to put that out there, because I don't want to discourage any of you to say, well, one thing's better than the other. It's rather a matter of can you get the support you need. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yep. Yep.
Cool.
And I understand. If I had another mock up of Angry Birds or Flappy Birds or whatever, that might bring quick revenue and interest, but then after 6 months people go, Flappy what? It's very. I wanted to make something useful that people want to use, not just play with for a month and put down.
Absolutely. So Stephanie, any other comments?
Well, the one thing that I would suggest, which both of you guys I think have done, but to anyone who's watching who's considering a crowdfunding or any type of fundraising campaign, is to be sure that you've done what these guys have done, which is understand what you need, how much money you need and what you're going to use it for, and then really think about who the right people are for you. Who do you want to be part of your journey? As Alan mentioned to us, there's not just any old investor that's going to work for him, and I think that's probably true for Jeremiah as well. And that's important, because if you go out with the sense of, I just need some money and I have to take whatever money comes to me first, it's not that you're destined to fail, but your chances of success are going to be a little slimmer, because you're not going to be 100% committed, because you don't feel a partnership with the people that are actually investing in you. So I would encourage everybody to really, before you jump on and say, hey, let's do crowdfunding, be sure that you understand how much you need, what you need it for, and who the right people are for you, so that you know if it's a good fit. And we haven't covered all different ways that it can be a good fit. As Manolis points out, there are lots of ways to use your circle and your connections, even if it doesn't seem obvious at first. But you just want to make sure that you're working with the right people for you.
Absolutely, Stephanie. It's definitely a new industry. It's a buzzword, but the fundamentals of business still apply. So you have to have all your ducks in a row before you go ahead and you do this. So we technically can go over an hour, but I guess I'll ask the guests. Is there any other questions that, as we were going through both of the scenarios here, are there any other questions that you had? I know, Alan, you haven't chatted in a little while. Did you have any questions or comments that you'd like to share?
No, my questions are still the one I have to go away and answer myself, which is the deeper understanding of the different options of raising the finance. And I think that the comments that we've discussed and heard are they just resonate as being very truthful. You have to understand your market. When we were going through the process of putting together the co-creation side of the development of the product, we were challenged to define our target market, and we began by by saying that our target market was 25 to 35-year-old women, but we were challenged to go, no, put a name to the person. How old is she? What are her interests? And you really have to do that, and it challenges you to really understand your product and your market and who you're going to be appealing to in the content that you create for your crowdfunding campaign, because otherwise you'll go out with a pebble dash approach, try and hit everyone and hit none.
That made me think of. Oh, sorry. That made me think of something, Alan. Is there a way that you could connect your target market to the people that you're trying to help and make it even easier for them to want to buy your product because they know they're helping that specific group?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I've started working that on the past week. So there are associations within the causes, the primary cause and then the broader cause of education of underprivileged communities. The challenge is to reach out to those broader communities.
Okay. Because one logical fit I saw was if you're working with kids, you should make a diaper bag.
Yeah, a diaper bag, and also a kid's a child's school bag. And,
exactly, a backpack.
You know, we believe in co-creation, so why not engage children in the competition to make a smart child's handbag, which reaches through to the mothers that might be interested in a handbag that makes their life easier.
Right. Okay. Very smart. I figured you did, but I just wanted to say it.
That's awesome. Great. And so. For you, Jeremiah, was there anything else that you had any questions with, or any comments before we sign off for the evening?
Just that first site you mentioned, was it at vested.com?
Yes, sir. appvested.com.
Cool. I've got it right.
Yep.
Yeah. No, I want to thank all three of you for the opportunity to chat and discuss and bounce back, ideas, because yeah, I'm learning every day, and I haven't got the right answers, but learning from mistakes is the way to go.
It's a continual learning process, isn't it?
Indeed, indeed. So thank all of you, and send me the link, please, for the handbag, so I can delete it from my, add it to my block sites, just in case my wife gets onto it. No, I think it's an excellent concept. My wife has the same trouble. I keep asking her to get a smaller handbag, but they seem to just get larger and larger.
No, we want a TARDIS. The next thing is, I see the Dalek behind you there, Jeremiah, and the concept is to have a TARDIS handbag that they can just fit as much rubbish in as they can possibly find. That would be the killer.
Yeah, I do joke around. My wife's one seems to be a black hole, because I can put my arm into it, but never seem to find what I'm after. Yeah.
That's great. Well, gentlemen, thank you both as well. You both have amazing companies. You're right in the early stages, and as you mentioned, Jeremiah, I mean, learning. I mean, it's you hit a roadblock, you overcome it. You hit a roadblock, you overcome it, and each step of the way, if you build resilience, so that each time you hit a roadblock, you're not as disappointed as the last, because you realize time until you break through again. So I love that. And so, Stephanie, would you like to say some parting words as well?
Well, I just want to say thank you so much for hosting this office hours. I want to thank Alan and Jeremiah for sharing their ideas with us. I'm excited to see what you guys do next. And of course, if there's anything that we can help you with over in the community, feel free to hit me up and ask me any questions. I'm happy to help as much as I can, and I know Manolis is as well. And I would echo what Manolis says, which is, don't get discouraged. It's a long road, but it's worthwhile. If you believe in your idea, you're going to find a way to make it work, because you have the ability, like I say, you have the ability to find the finance that you need.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
Great. Well, thank you all so much. Stephanie, thank you for joining us. Your insights were awesome. Thank you for the questions we had tonight as well from Google Hangouts on Air. If you'd like to be on a future episode of the VICN Office Hours, please join the Incubator community. We will then send reminders as to how you can sign up from there. We also included a link to sign up to the community within the Hangouts as well. So thank you all very much. Until next time, dream it, believe it, achieve it. Have a good night.